Hi dear teachers, before starting the video I wanted to ask you this question. How this picture is related to your teaching and learning. So as you can see, this is an equipment which is used in construction industry. So it is a set of poles and boards that are built into a structure for workers to stand on and support them while they are working on the outside of a building. So suppose these are our learners, yeah, and this building is the learning process, some difficult task. And in order to achieve the highest point of this building, our learning outcome, you need to give them some support. You need to build this support, and this will help them to achieve the highest point, the learning objectives, the learning outcome. And this equipment is actually called scaffolding. And today we are going to talk about scaffolding in education. So what does scaffolding mean in the educational context? Scaffolding is the steps teachers take to support learners so that they can understand new content and develop new skills. Later, learners can use the new learning in different contexts without the support of scaffolding. Scaffolding is temporary support to help learners do things now as well as in the future. Vygotsky wrote that what learners can do today with support, they can do alone tomorrow. Scaffolding can be provided for listening, speaking, reading, and writing tasks, as well as different other practical tasks. And it can be used to help learners form ideas and learn language. Some learners need more support than others, and some need to be supported for longer than others. Often, learners find they need support in one or some areas of language learning, but not in others. For example, some learners may need many forms of scaffolding for writing and speaking, but fewer for reading and listening. Scaffolding helps learners to reach beyond what they could do on their own. So it's closely related to the zone of proximal development actually. Scaffolding is not intended to make learning easy. Instead, scaffolding helps students to stay in their zone of proximal development. So as you can see in this picture, by their own, students can do only limited things, while with the support of scaffolding, they can do a lot more. They can reach more results. And as regards to the types of types and ways of scaffolding, there are different ways of scaffolding, and the kind of support we provide is very important for outcome of the task. One way to scaffold learning is to carefully consider the language we use. Other examples are creating interest, breaking tasks into small steps, providing before, during and after task support, using visuals and realia, using model text for production of language, allowing longer wait time, and even allowing some use of L1. Now let's look at some scaffolding of receptive skills. So the first way is to activate learners' prior knowledge about the topic. So you can do it by telling students to discuss about the topic of the lesson. Second way is to prepare the context of the listening and reading text. So for example, if our reading text is about effects of fast food, We can prepare the context by showing them the short video clip about fast food industry, or maybe an advertisement about kind of fast food. So the third way is to encourage learners to predict what they might hear or read. So you can do it by writing the topic of the reading. For example, the problems of fast food or the effects of fast food, and then ask learners to predict what the text could be about. And the fourth strategy is to pre-teach or elicit new content vocabulary. So you can do it by giving students word banks, or you can present actually new vocabulary. You can also elicit it from the students. The fifth strategy is to ask learners to underline key language at word and sentence levels. So by word level, I mean some academic vocabulary, so you tell them to underline academic vocabulary. By sentence level, I mean matching definitions to vocabulary. And the next strategy is to discuss with learners the reasons why certain language is used. And it's usually done at the end of the lesson. So after they did reading for gist and reading for specific information, now they can read for detail and think about the reasons why certain language is used. They can think about the function of the language. The next strategy is to use visual organizers, so learners can make notes as they listen or read. So you can give them the table, and while they listen, they can fill in this table. Or you can also use visual organizers in order to help students to see the structure of what they are going to hear or read. So for example, if it is reading about cause and effects of using fossil fuels, you can give them like kind of diagram where they can see the causes and what each cause leads to. Okay, now let's look at the scaffolding of productive skills. So the first strategy is to talk about what is going to be said or written. So this is like a lead-in. And the next stage is to provide listening or reading models before speaking and writing. This is actually one of the most important parts, one of the best way of scaffolding, speaking and writing. So basically before writing a cause and effect essay or opinion essay, you should give them a model. And then after that, you can the next strategy actually, help learners notice the language they need to use at word and sentence levels. So after you give the students the model, they should analyze this model. They should analyze the structure, like where is the introduction, where is the body paragraph, where is the conclusion, and following that, they analyze the language of each paragraph. And the next strategy is to provide word banks of key topic-specific vocabulary, sentence starters, language frames to guide communication of ideas. By language frames, I mean some specific vocabulary of the topic. For example, if we are writing cause and effect essay, so you can provide students with this kind of language frames, and they can use it in the essay. Okay, next strategy is to use visual organizers to brainstorm ideas learners might use. So they can, you can use different kind of diagrams, or you can use Venn diagram or tree diagram, and they can brainstorm ideas they might use in their speaking or writing. And next strategy is to encourage collaborative work so learners can provide scaffolding for each other. So for example, after writing an article or certain type of essay, you can tell students to peer review each other. So they can edit each other's work, give feedback to each other. Okay, and next strategy is to help learners think about who they are speaking or writing to, so their audience, and why they are speaking or writing. It's the reason, the aim of their writing. And the last strategy is to provide constructive feedback. And remember that constructive feedback should be specific and detailed. You should not just give them like, so you have weak points in this and this. You should give some evidence. Where is his weak point? And when you tell what they should improve, you should tell. You should give specific example. Okay, now let's do some practice. And I want you to stop after each example and try to think how would you scaffold this situation, and only after that you can listen to the answer. So the first strategy, the vocabulary in the listen reading text is quite difficult. So this is quite easy, right? So you just provide them with some word banks, or you present or you can also pre-teach some difficult vocabulary. So the next situation, the instructions for the task are long and confusing. So in this situation, you need to divide the instruction into parts. So for example, if it is the instruction consists of 50 words, you can divide into 3 sentences, into 3 short sentences, and also you need to paraphrase some difficult words. And the third task, there are 4 speakers debating about one issue, and it's very difficult for students to differentiate between the speakers. So yes, and I think it's also it's not very difficult. So there are actually 2 ways to do scaffolding. So you can stop after each speaker and discuss with the student what he has told. And the second way is to divide the class into 4 groups and assign each group 1 speaker. And then each group will listen only for 1 speaker. The next task, the reading passage consists of 2 pages, and it's very long. So what will you do? Here you can do jigsaw reading. Yes, you can divide again students into 4 or 5 groups of 4 students, and then give each group 1 part of the reading passage, and after that they can retell it to the other groups. So after that you divide them into, you regroup them again, so that there are 1 member from each team, from previous each team. You can make it even difficult by giving some questions, and now in the new group they need to answer to these questions. So the next situation, the learners write an opinion essay, So this is something new. They haven't, they have never written the opinion essay. So here you need to provide learners with model. After giving the model, they can analyze the structure. So, and then after analyzing the structure, they can analyze the language. Or another way to do this is to use process approach for writing. So first they can plan their writing. You can explain them the structure of the writing. Then they can brainstorm some ideas for each part. After that, you can divide the groups into 3 groups, for example. And so one group will write introduction, the second group will write body paragraph, and the third group will write conclusion paragraph. And then after that, you just put them together. And as a home task, you can give them to write an opinion essay about another topic. And the sixth strategy, the sixth situation. So imagine the learners read a text about causes and effects of industrialization. And following that, they should write an essay about consequences of industrialization. And I think there is something missing here. So before writing an essay, I think you need to put some kind of visual organizer which they should fill in. So first of all, they fill in this visual organizer, writing the causes and effects. And after that, you also need to give them some sentence frames and sentence starters and language frames, and explain them the structure of this kind of essay. And only after that they can write it. And the last situation, the learners present the result of their research project. And this is a really challenging task actually. And you need to divide it into the steps. So first they need to think about the topic, come up with a topic. After that they need to come up with a research question. Then they need to gather information from secondary sources. So then you need also to teach them how to find credible information. So, and this goes on. Okay, and now let's do other examples from our course plan. So it's a course plan, grade 10, unit 3, virtual reality, page 34. So here students watch 80 minutes TED talk and do some tasks with it. And here's how I would do it, how I would scaffold this task. So first of all, I will divide the class into 6 groups. Then I would write the heading, your brain on video games, on the board, and ask learners to predict what the TED talk could be about. And they should do it as a group. Next, I would write the predictions. I would write prediction of each group on the board. Then learners would watch the whole video for the first time without pauses and check their predictions. So we would check each group's prediction as a whole class. So the next stage, I would pre-teach some difficult vocabulary for the class, and I will do probably by giving them word banks, or I would give them the task to match the words with their definitions. And the next stage is to divide the video into 6 parts and assign 1 part for each group. You actually need to do it beforehand, yeah. And in the next slide I will show you how I divided the video. The sixth stage is each group would be given 5 questions about their part of the video, and they should find answers to these questions. So they will find answers only for their group's questions. They don't need to find answers to the question of other groups. So at the next stage, we will check as a whole class, or another way is to give the transcript of the TED Talk to students, which is available online, so they can check themselves. And the last stage, for post-watching activity, you can ask learners to discuss whether they agree or disagree with the findings of the research and what other researchers say about the effects of video games. Here's the way I scaffolded this task. And as I promised, here's how I divided the video into 6 parts. So as I told you, the video consists of 18 minutes, and I divide it into like some meaningful 6 parts. Each part consists of 3 minutes approximately. Okay, that is the end of the video. Thank you for your attention.